Jeff. Thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Jeff Berney. I write thrillers, um, specifically dark, twisty thrillers. I have two books out: A Killer Secret, which is a psychological thriller, and my latest is The Fall of Faith, which is a domestic thriller, which really is kind of an interesting kind of newer genre, which is kind of like more relationship built. Um, it's a little bit of a, I hate to say it, like romantic suspense, because it's not like a romance in a typical sense, but there's a little bit of that kind of relationship involved. Um, in my, I don't want to say real life, but the life that affords me to write, I work in advertising. Um, and I've been, always wanted to write a novel, and I've had clients edit my work for over 25 years. So I thought, I'd rather write something that I'm excited about and can put my own name on, and so that's what I'm doing.
Love that. I would love if you could tell us more about what your books are about.
Sure. A Killer Secret, like I said, is a psychological thriller. It's really an intimate story. There's really only three main characters, and there aren't a whole lot of secondary or tertiary characters as well. It's really kind of this very intimate look at um, the secrets that we all kind of keep. Some of them are just benign, and others are more important and kind of define who we are and how we interact with the world. And I thought it would be interesting to um, think about and write a story about a secret that someone was willing to kill to keep. And so the story kind of follows a therapist. Her name is Edie, and she is kind of in a place in her life where she's not sure that she's helping her clients. She's not sure she's doing what she is meant to do. She's in a crazy dysfunctional relationship with her much older boyfriend, who also was once her college psychology professor. Now he's her boyfriend slash lover slash she's not sure how to define him. Also her business partner, um, and he's this real pompous older guy who thinks the world revolves around him, and um, she's going through the motions at her practice, and one day this guy comes into her life and as a client, and super quiet, but he eventually tells her that he is a serial killer and that he is actively kind of stalking his next victim. So that is kind of the where all the action comes into, and through the story, all three of them have secrets, and they all kind of slowly unravel and come to the surface. And then The Fall of Faith, like I said, is more of a domestic thriller. um, for my second book, I wanted a completely different cast of characters, a completely different story, um, and I wanted to try writing more characters. The first book, like I said, was this very intimate three-person affair, and I wrote it from the point of view of all three characters. For this one, it's about a lonely trucker who is on his last run. He recently got divorced, so he has nothing to go home to. Really, no home to go home to. He's spent his life on the road, and he gets stuck in a small town called Eden, which, despite its kind of biblical name, is more of a hell on earth, um, filled with all kinds of crazy characters in this small town. And for one reason or another, he's stuck there, can't get out. He's learning that nobody is really who they seems. He falls in love with a stripper, and of course, love or lust, depending on your kind of point of view, and finds out that she's not who she seems either. And it's really unclear as the story goes on if he will make it out of this town alive, if they will make it out together. And it's kind of this story about faith, not necessarily in a religious sense, but faith in yourself, faith in your fellow man, faith in love. And at the end, I'm hopefully leave it up to the reader to decide if faith is even worth it.
Love that. What inspired you to write your books?
um, I have been writing since I really could hold a pencil. I think super introverted kid. We moved around a lot. um, when I was younger. I like to say I was a railroad brat, and I know that, there's a lot of military brats, but my dad worked on the railroad. He moved around a lot. So kind of, grew up all over the place. And at some point in my childhood, I decided that it wasn't worth it to make friends because I was just going to move and leave them anyway. And so, really, my entertainment became reading. And so, read a whole lot as a kid and really loved these stories that I discovered, and wanted to um, write my own. And kind of, it started as I think a lot of people do, I wanted to write the great American novel. I don't even know what that is anymore, and like I said, I write, thriller genre books, but I do try to have a theme to my books. And unlike, I think a lot of thrillers are really action based and there's not a whole lot of character development. For me, the character development is the funnest part, creating these unique characters. Sometimes they're little pieces of me and little pieces of people I know, and sometimes they're just fashioned out of thin air. But really getting to know them and putting them in crazy situations and just seeing how they would react is it's kind of fun. I know it's, like I said, I write dark twisted thrillers, so maybe my fun is torturing fictional people, but it seems to work.
Love that. When you were writing your books, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your books are for?
Oh, I love that question. My main reader is my wife. She's my first reader, my alpha reader, my first editor. um, I my goal is to either make her react in some way, whether it's to laugh or to you know throw the book at me because it was so, you know there was a part that was so weird and dark, and or look at me side-eyed like, is this really what you think? um but like I said, it's to get a reaction out of her. So she's my first reader, and and honestly, it's partly for me too. And like, the writing process, it takes me so long. I'm not one of those writers who can write every day. Like I said, I've got a full-time job. We've got four young boys that we share a house with. So it takes me, probably a couple years to finish a book. And for me, it's almost, my own therapy, and just something that I enjoy as a hobby, and hopefully readers will enjoy too. But as long as my wife enjoys my stories, then I feel like I've done what I need to do.
I love that. I know you've touched on this next question, but how long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, I I loved in high school, English was probably my favorite class. I loved writing short stories, which is weird. I don't mean to get on a tangent, but now I have like some kind of mental block. I can't write short stories. I know it's weird. Um, writing a 90,000 plus word novel feels easier to me than um, trying to write a short story. But I really kind of sat down. It was probably a couple years before I turned 40. I'm almost 50 now, and I wanted, I made a goal. I'm like, I want to write a novel before I'm 40. I I did that, but it was a really bad novel. Didn't publish it. But I really learned the process on that, and I probably took, you know, I think 3 or 4 years to recover from. Oh my gosh, I wrote this, but it's awful. I don't want to show anybody. To starting my next story, which became a killer secret, and uh, there's just something there's something cool about trying to figure out a story. I'm a plotter. So I know there's lots of writers who sit down and just start writing and it flows. I I can't write that way. I've got to outline. And that's part of my fun too. It's like I know the beginning and I know the end, and then it's how many twists and turns can I put in the middle, but also leave myself some room that while I'm writing it, I don't feel like I'm boxed in and it gets boring.
I love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
I try to write at least an hour or two a day, at least 5 days a week. Inevitably, that doesn't happen, but I've learned not to beat myself over the head about it. The writing software I use is on my computer, it's on my phone, it's on my iPad, so I could be, waiting in line to pick up the kids at school, and something strikes me, and I can, write it down on my phone or in line at the grocery store. And so I always try to be open to ideas when they come. I have a ton of notes on my phone, just like, oh, this was a free flow thought. I probably can work it into a book later. Um, so probably a couple hours a day. Again, I take months and months to write the book. Once I've got my first draft done, I like to put it away and not think about it for at least a month. Kind of because it took me so long, I probably don't remember how it started anyway. So that month kind of just lets me forget the ending, and then I go back and read and start the editing process from there.
Love that. So usually we don't go off script, but I'm going to go a little off script because I'm sure people are curious. Are you willing to share what kind of writing software you use?
Sure, I use Scrivener,
Scrivener,
which I think is
which I
one of
think
the
is one of the
more popular ones out there. And then for putting the books together, I use Vellum.
love that. Thank you for sharing that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
As few distractions as possible, which means I'm usually writing at night when everyone's asleep, or during the day if I've got a lunch break from work. Definitely need some jazz. Music definitely helps me get in a creative mood. I think jazz is a very creative form of music, and more importantly, there's no lyrics. Um, I know some people who love to have metal or rock and roll going while they're writing. The lyrics just get in my brain, and I find that sometimes they seep into my writing, which not necessarily a bad thing, but I just try to have a nice creative environment. Just my laptop and some music is all I need.
Love that. What's your favorite writing snack or drink?
Um, ooh, I am definitely a coffee person. After a writing session, I'll, maybe have a glass of whiskey. I mean, you can see my bar behind me. Um, but coffee and water usually. Anything else, I well, to be honest, anything else gets devoured by our kids, so there's not much left.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Well, I love thrillers, of course, but I also have always loved more kind of literary works as well. John Irving is my favorite author. I'm reading his latest book now, and he's probably been my biggest influence, which is maybe weird because he's not a thriller author at all. But I mean, if anyone's read The World According to Garp or Cider House Rules um, or A Prayer for Owen Meany, which is my favorite book of all time. He writes the weirdest, coolest, most authentic characters of anyone that I've ever read, and so I I try to use that as inspiration for my characters as well.
Of that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Well, like I said, John Irving, Stephen King, which I know everybody says, but I mean, he's just such a prolific author that it's hard to ignore him. Um, as a kid, I like I said, I read a lot. Beverly Cleary was one of my favorites as a kid, and again, I know I don't write anything like her or children's genre, but just seeing the fact that these people were creating these stories and kind of fashioning them out of thin air and their imagination, gave me hope that that's something that I could do someday.
Of that. What type of books did you grow up reading and did you have an all-time favorite?
Oh, all-time favorite. Probably Tom Sawyer was my all-time favorite. Mark Twain, another great inspiration, just for his ability to inject humor, sometimes dark humor, and really be topical to his day. Like I said, Beverly Cleary was another one. Gosh, now I can't remember the name of it, but one of her books is probably, I want to say it's like Ralph or something. It was like a little mouse on a motorcycle. I don't know why I remember uh, that, but obviously, again, just the fact that we moved around a lot as a kid, and um, I was so introverted, just reading these stories kind of opened up this whole larger world around me and let me kind of imagine myself in these different circumstances. And so probably really fueled my desire to be a writer, and also kind of um, probably set a foundation for the kind of person and writer that I am today.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if something comes out, you're gonna automatically grab it?
I will automatically pick up any Michael Conley book, particularly his Harry Bosch series, and that's kind of top crime fiction. Um, I just, again, another writer that really is great at creating characters, and I look to him as kind of, if I were to write a series, because there's a lot of series of books out there, if but I feel like he does a great job of not feeling like you're writing the same story over and over again. Um, so he's definitely one. Stephen King's one that I'll pick up almost any book that he writes. I particularly look for his books that aren't in the horror genre, because I think I feel like he's written in almost every genre now, and I kind of like seeing what he does outside of what people expect of him.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Um, Try all kinds of different genres. You know, uh, each genre has different things that you'll find. You know, Obviously, I love thrillers, but I read everything from comedy to romance to memoirs. Just there are amazing stories out there, and there's so many that you will never be able to read. But a fragment of them, um, and so don't be afraid to try and read broadly. I just don't think that we should pigeonhole ourselves on, oh, I only like fantasy or I only like thrillers. Uh, like I said, my favorite author, John Irving, is not anywhere near what I write or typically read, but I've been so inspired by his stories. I'm inspired by memoirs all the time. So yeah, just find the type of stories you like and then try something new every once in a while as well.
On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Don't give up. Um, writing a book, at least for me, is it's like a marathon. And there are points within every part of the writing process where I feel like, oh, this is awful, or I should just stop and put it away. And invariably, I talk myself out of that, um, and keep going and just trust the story that's in your heart and in your head. And remember that that first draft, nobody's first draft is good. Um, Nobody writes an amazing book the first time that they sit down at the computer or a piece of paper. And really, the for me, writing is about the editing. It's getting your story out there because that's the big thing. I think there's a lot of people who have great stories, and it's a shame that very few of them will ever have the time or inclination to put them down in book format. Um, but once you get that story down, it's really the editing that comes in and kind of molds that and shapes it and helps you create that better story that's in your head.
Of that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh, well, other than we have 7 kids, I am a private pilot. I have my pilot's license. So that's fun.
That's is there anything you would like to say or add?
I think, if you're an aspiring writer and you haven't started yet, um, just start. Whether you're the kind of person who you feel you just got to sit down and type, or you're the kind of person who needs to outline, just start. It's going to feel overwhelming, and it will probably feel overwhelming um, throughout the entire process. I still feel overwhelmed of it. I'm about to start my third book, and I feel that old feeling of, oh man, I can't do this. This is a lot of words. How am I going to create something fresh and new? So just start. And if you're a reader, don't be afraid to find indie authors. There are a ton of indie authors out there who aren't represented by big agents of big publishers, and they've got amazing stories as well.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find my books in almost every format except audio at the moment. Everywhere you can buy a book online for sure. So Amazon, Apple Books, Kobo, Google Play, Barnes and Noble, plus a ton of smaller distributors as well. You can buy print and ebooks directly from me at my website, jeffberney.com. I also do offer signed copies as well there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so glad we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes so everyone can find them.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.